Hello everyone, I'm Peter Schonberg, and today I'll be talking to you about difficulty and player enjoyment in video games. So first, I'm going to give you guys a quick run through of my research's background, starting with flow theory. Flow theory is basically a quantifiable way of talking about immersion in whatever it is you're doing. In this case, that would be playing a video game. It's characterized by feelings of exhilaration and enjoyment from when you voluntarily push yourself past the perceived limit of your abilities, but there's a little more to it than that. Here we see a list of 8 theorized components deemed necessary to achieve a flow state. There are a few items on here that I really want to focus on. Players should feel like the challenge they're facing isn't impossible, the game should give them active feedback and show them that their skills are improving, and that players should feel in control of the situation. It's very frustrating and discouraging if you feel like there's some external factor that you can't control that's responsible for your failures. This list is really useful and to the point. However, some researchers have shown that you don't need all 8 components to achieve a flow state. So, on to the methodology. After many rounds of feedback and revision, I settled on the research question, what design aspects contribute to effective game difficulty? To determine the answers to this question, I designed a 10-question survey with 5 multiple choice and 5 free response questions. I distributed the survey on my personal Facebook as well as a student group for my university, 3 Discord servers, and a Reddit page devoted to sharing academic surveys. It ran for just over a month and recorded 112 responses in total. Once those responses were in, I read through each of them and compared them to the earlier list of 8 components needed to achieve a flow state. And for those of you who are interested, here is the survey if you'd like to read through it. So to address probably one of the bigger questions outside of my research, why should games be difficult at all? Well, that actually has a pretty simple answer. People tend to enjoy things that make them apply themselves when they have to learn a new strategy to beat that level or enemy. 56.25% of respondents agreed that they prefer games that challenge them as opposed to those that just give them what they want, and an additional 16.96% strongly agreed. About 23% disagreed with that statement, so while they're the minority, that's still a pretty sizable number. Some respondents noted that they just want to play games to relax and have fun, so they're not really looking for that challenge. Difficulty can also be used as a pretty effective narrative device. It's a great way to incline players to feel similar to what the characters in the in-game world would feel. Usually, these worlds are brutal, uncaring, and unforgiving, so if you want players to feel like they're part of that world, you just put them up against something that makes them feel like the challenge they face is in fact brutal and uncaring. Some really good examples of this kind of implementation are the Dark Souls series, as well as Bloodborne and Mortal Shell. Key component to each of these games' worlds is that they are, as I mentioned earlier, brutal and unforgiving. The key is to make players really feel like they're fighting this uphill battle in a world that couldn't care less about them. Now, this isn't to say that you should just throw impossible odds at players. You have to keep their feelings and abilities in mind. A key component in flow theory is that players perceive their skill to match the difficulty of the challenge they face. They also need to feel like they're in control. Players get discouraged and frustrated if they continuously feel like their failure isn't their fault. So effective implementation of difficulty usually looks like things that make players learn and adapt to overcome. This can be done through simple things like just decreasing the time available for players to react, or by making the enemy's moves more complex and difficult to understand. Some examples of ineffective difficulty would be artificially increasing the length of encounters by just giving enemies more health. Players don't have to learn any new strategies or anything, and it just becomes a test of their patience. Some games also allow AI opponents to cheat, but that's just unfair, so players will end up feeling discouraged from that. So we've got these 8 components that contribute to flow states, but throughout my survey responses, 3 of those 8 really stood out. Feelings of control, matched perceived challenge and perceived skill, and immediate feedback on player actions. So the key takeaways here are when you're designing a game and figuring out what you're going to do to make it challenging, make sure you design it in such a way that the player will, for the majority of their time playing, feel in control of the situation and their character. The fewer instances where they feel out of control, the better. Your players also need to feel like they're good enough at the game to overcome whatever you throw at them. This is a little more complicated, but you can help players feel good about their skills by giving them active feedback and really showing them how they've improved. Just to wrap up, I'd like to say thank you to my supervisor, Dr. Davis, for encouraging me and giving me the resources I needed to finish the support. I'm very thankful for her help. If anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me by email. I love talking about this project, so I'd be very happy to talk more about it with anyone who's interested. Thank you.